Today I'm going to discuss with you one of, and I think many therapists, experts would agree, that this is probably the number one intimacy killer, whether it be physical intimacy or whether it be emotional intimacy. If you've got this going on, if this is happening in your relationship, whether you're married or whether you are just together for a long period of time, this is probably, I would assume very safely, based upon research and data, that this is probably one of the biggest intimacy killers that's in your relationship. This intimacy killer, if you will, is none other than underlying resentment. If there's underlying resentment in your relationship, I'm just going to promise you, especially if the relationship is dealing with infidelity, you can be assured it's going to be very difficult to gain momentum, regain intimacy, whether it be physical or whether it be emotional. It's going to be tough to regain solid ground because as long as there is underlying resentment, it is hard to establish connection. In fact, underlying resentment breeds disconnection. And as you know from some of my previous blogs, disconnection is devastating for any couple. Disconnection is you stay in your world, I'll stay in my world, I'll do my thing, you do your thing, and we'll just somehow kind of make it work. Disconnection is also manifested through underlying bitterness or resentment because we just kind of go, well, you know what? This is just the best it's going to be. I'm going to do my thing and you do yours. And if we get together and have sex every now and then, or if we can make it work somehow or whatever, that'll be fine. And there's this underlying sense of offense that's going on within one or both partners. And it is in many ways an absolute contributor to relapse or a revenge affair, or maybe if it's not even just out of revenge, it caters towards the betrayed having their own affair because of the fact that you're disconnected. And if you can't deal with the underlying resentment, I promise you the relationship is going to stall, or it's going to be so tragically difficult that you'll end up considering throwing it all away because of this underlying resentment. You see, when there's underlying resentment, there is this inability to establish a few things. One is there's an inability to establish objectivity. Because as soon as you get into a bit of a heated discussion or even just a sensitive discussion, there is this very quick lunge, if you will, by one or both parties to get angry, to flood, to maybe blow it out of proportion, maybe go for the jugular, because there is this resentment that acts like a trampoline that as soon as the right thing happens, it's kind of like, boom, here we go. And so you have a $100 problem that gets a $10,000 reaction, and you kind of go, whoa, what did I just step into? Underlying resentment also creates an inability for both physical and emotional desire because you're angry. And if you're angry, why do you want to be intimate? Why do you want to kind of step into that opportunity for closeness and vulnerability? You don't want to because you're angry or you've got resentment or you're still bitter over what's gone on. You see, I noticed in my own life when I was dealing with this underlying resentment, it was even hard for me to enjoy the moment. There was this inability to just enjoy being with Samantha because I was upset, angry. I still had this bitterness inside. I wanted to address the bigger issues, so I didn't want to even really enjoy the smaller issues. There was just this kind of overwhelming, underlying funk that wouldn't let me want to be vulnerable or even be vulnerable because I felt like, you know, you did X, Y, and Z, or you're just going to do X, Y, and Z, or I'm still hurt or offended because of, this previous situation. And so this underlying resentment creates an inability to enjoy the moment, to gain momentum, to get unstuck, to kind of go all in to a discussion or an online course or what have you, because there's this blockage. And so today I want to just give you a few quick things, because there's questions like, well, what do you do? Like, what do you do if you've got this underlying resentment? So I want to give you just some practical, uber practical, if you will, help today. Before I say that, I had a question come to me the other day that said, Sam, can you really be happy again? Or are you just kind of looking at life like you're just going to be less sad? Like, are you going to be able to heal? Is there really a chance that you're going to be able to, or that we're going to be able to heal? Or are we really just working towards being less than hopeless or less than, discouraged? Are we just going to be less sadder than we are right now? And I assure you, it's absolutely possible to be healed and to be whole and to be happy again. There's not a lot of money doing this, okay? I'm doing this, I make these videos because I remember so clearly what it was like 15 years ago to not have anything like this. I understand what you're feeling. I understand to a certain degree what your spouse is feeling. And this is a safe place. And I know that it can feel like, man, are you just selling me a bill of goods? No, absolutely not. I don't get paid if you take courses or go to our weekend or any of that. This is a genuine hope that you can get through the dark tunnel that you're in, because there is light at the end of the tunnel. I don't know if there's light for your relationship, but I know and I assure you that there is light for you. There absolutely is. So number one, you've got to identify what the resentment is. If you can identify what you're dealing with in terms of this bitterness and resentment, you can begin to understand it, and you can begin to chop away at it, and you can begin to form resolution for what it is that you feel like you are dealing with internally. This isn't, what is my partner filled with resentment about me? This is, what am I struggling with? Identify it, because once you get it out on paper, you can look at it, you can see it, you can actually maybe go, no, that's not it, that's really what it is. Because as you can extract out the things that you are feeling, it can help you identify them so that when you do have an opportunity to talk about it, you can stay away from getting sidetracked or into the margin and really focus on what your heart is struggling with. Next is, there needs to be a safe environment where you can begin to express it. Yes, one of our online courses would be great. Maybe meeting with a professional or even just a third party that can help you start to express what you feel that you have bitterness and resentment for. You can also then, after you've identified it and you can begin to discuss it, you can start to even grieve your way through it. You're not going to be able to flip the switch and go, okay, I'm over it. Sometimes there are these minimal things where we can feel like we've been heard, our partner or our spouse has understood what we're saying and they've committed to work on it. And so sometimes we can go, okay, I'm over it. I'm not living there anymore. I'm moving forward. Sometimes it's not that easy, and it's far bigger than just being able to say, I'm over it and I can move on. It doesn't work that way for at least 50% of the issues that couples deal with when they're dealing with infidelity or addiction. Next is, you're going to have to be willing to start to forgive it. And some things take longer than others to forgive. For some things like the act of betrayal and things of those nature, it's going to take longer to be able to work through that, but eventually there's going to need to be the choice to forgive. Some things are a little bit easier to forgive. If it's an offense or something of a smaller nature, you can probably get through that quicker. But you're going to have to be willing to forgive it if you're going to diffuse the bitterness and resentment. Not forget. I'm not talking about forget it. I'm talking about forgiving it. And finally, it's going to take work on both parties. If you are the one that's being forgiven, you're going to have to work to regain their trust and work to repair the damage that you have done in their life. If you are the one that is actually forgiving, I'm sorry, it's not, I forgive you, and oh, I feel amazing, everything's better, let's just go be physically intimate, or let's just go enjoy life, man, we are so much better because I just chose to forgive you. Most of the time, it doesn't work that way. Most of the time, it is a process and it is a commitment, and it is a willingness to persevere and to be incredibly brave and courageous, to put blinders on to the negative emotions and the temptations to get angry every single day and say, no, I'm going to go forward one day at a time, one step at a time. I am worth this effort. My relationship is worth this effort. And I am going to diffuse this bitterness and resentment that is not my friend, is actually a jail cell. And today I am setting myself free from this jail.